Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Head over to audibletrial.com/jumbled and get your free 30-day trial and a free audiobook, because why wouldn't you do that? And if I'm being completely honest, this podcast is actually brought to you by the Democratic National Convention. What? I can't say that. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Jumbled, your favorite podcast about nothing. I'm Zach. And big old blank silence because Jonny had stuff to do, and that's fine. Life happens. But there's some very interesting stuff going on. Pretty recent news, so we thought that we would get our buddy Jer back on. Jer, how you doing, bud?
I'm doing great, man. How are you doing?
I'm hanging in there. I'm not gonna lie. My stomach's a little turned upside down right now, but you know what? Sometimes you just gotta persevere. You gotta stick through it to get this content out. So I'm doing okay otherwise.
Well, that's good to hear, and I'm sure your fans will appreciate it.
Yeah, well, I hope they understand that I could be just laying down on the couch right now, and this is the rest of my night, is sitting in this chair and editing and stuff like that. But I happily do it. So yeah, like I said, Johnny's got he's building a deck, and that's not like some sort of metaphor. Like he's literally building a deck. That's what he's got going on right now, and he's got family in town to help him out with that. And apparently there was some big crisis. I'm sure he'll be happy to go through it next week or whatever. But Jer contacted me on Slack. He's like, "Hey, there's some stuff going on. Pretty hot news right now, and it's." I tried to look up some of it, and I got as far as Google searching it and looking at the website very briefly. But I guess we're talking about QAnon today. Yeah.
So I guess what had happened in the news recently is they've really been targeting the QAnon thing.
Okay, and explain that, because honestly, I don't know a lot about it, and maybe some of our listeners don't either.
Yeah, that's for sure. So QAnon is an alias, or poses as a group of people basically that claim that they have Q level clearance, which is high security clearance, and that they're working alongside with the President of the United States. Okay. And the purpose of Q, it started on 4chan and then migrated to 8chan, and the purpose of it was to basically psyop people into waking up, like to start looking into the corruption themselves by dropping breadcrumbs, because they can't come out and just give you the information because it is classified. And they also say that like people could not handle the truth as it is currently. And then we're not even talking about like extraterrestrials or any of this stuff. We're just talking about the corruption that's going on, and the money embezzlement and the cabal and like all that, and the child rings that are associated with these people. That is apparently sorry, my someone rang my doorbell for whatever reason.
It's okay.
And yeah, that's what Q's basically doing, is he's been dropping posts since October 28th of 2017. Okay. And he has been doing it pretty consistently. The longest break he's ever taken was just past. It was about 2-3 weeks long that he went silent for. And so the media... And so basically what has happened now is the media... This thing has picked up so much momentum. The media is really, really trying to discredit it. And even some people that are part of the alternative news are trying to discredit it. And it's kind of becoming this big mess where they're trying to paint the people following Q as a cult. And that's kind of each person's decision to make up whether they believe it or not by going through the evidence, which there's a lot of. Because the Q posts, he's done 1,825 posts since October.
And those were all what you linked out on that website, correct?
Yeah, QAnon.pub has all the posts that he has done and will do. Like as new ones come up, these people put them on with the links and everything associated to them. Okay. And when he drops these breadcrumbs, he basically drops them for what they call like the autistics or the anons, to go and take that information and start digging into it and start actually trying to figure out these riddles or these vague descriptions that he's putting out and try to find connections to them. And these people are coming up with, the connections between the members, how they covered certain things up, and the various things like that that show you that there is a lot of corruption and that Trump was never supposed to be elected. They were going to try and rig it. They rigged the election against Bernie. They rigged the election against Trump, but he won anyways. And that's what QAnon is. And I kind of wanted to go into, while we're here, like a few of the things that makes people believe QAnon's real. Okay. And some of the things that make people think QAnon's fake, and kind of the bigger picture of it.
Okay. So just so I'm on the same page, QAnon is an anonymous group. Yeah. Or is it an individual?
They claim they're a group.
Okay. Mm-hmm. With high level clearance into the government and controlled structure of the government.
Yeah, they claim that they have everything. So I'm assuming one of them is associated with the NSA, because they claim that they have all the backup servers, they have all texts, all emails. They've showed pictures from inside Air Force One. They've showed pictures from right after bills have been signed by Trump. They are basically trying to show that they're very close to Trump. And Trump has done things like Trump has done in the past. There's one incident where an Anon asked Q if Trump would say a certain line, or if he could get someone to say a certain line. I think it was tippity top shape or something like that. So I have one video, actually, I'll link it to you, but it's Trump, and he's at the Easter egg roll speech from the Truman balcony. And this is a 2-minute video. It's published by Time on April 2nd. And at about 58 seconds is right before he says it. He says, "We like to keep this place in tippity top shape." And that's that's about a week or two after this Anon had posted it. And Q took that post and put up and said, "Did you hear it?"
Wow.
Yeah. And then there was the other day when he signed one of the bills, he signed it with the number 1776 below it. And that was the 1776 post was the post that, if you're on QAnon Pub right now, I'll go down to 7076 and read it out.
Okay, that's going to take me a bit here. I'm scrolling.
Yeah, there's so many to go through.
1786, 84, 78. Without the pen of the author, the pen of the author of Common Sense, the sword of Washington would have been raised in vain. John Adams.
Yeah, and then the picture shows Donald Trump's signature and then the number 1776. And that's the presidential White House pen that's above it. Now, obviously, you can fake these pictures. That is possible.
Sure.
But yeah, because 1776 has the historical meaning to it as well.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. And you see in the picture next to them, you have the people in the Q outfits. And you see on that one, he says, "How often does the presidential motorcade honk upon request?" And they've been, they've been honking for these people. And then in one of his rallies, I think it was not the one in Pennsylvania, but the one in Florida that he had, he pointed, when he came out, he pointed at somebody holding a Q sign. And later Q said, can anyone send in a video of that person? If you were recording it, please send in a video of it. We'd like to have it. And yeah, so it's interesting, that kind of stuff.
So for, you said they had him insert a something into a speech. Wouldn't that sort of like out them? As being, whoever the anonymous poster is, if they're if somebody's requesting for them to say tippity top shape, I don't know. I mean, it's just like, and then they obviously relay that message to the president in some form, whether it's in the teleprompter or whatever.
Yeah.
You would think that at a certain point, the presidency or his staff would would sort of be able to out these people. Why is that not something that they've tried to do yet?
Do you mean by out these people? Are you referring to like him, the president, actually coming out publicly and confirming that he has a connection with Q?
Well, I don't know. I don't know what. So as far as I'm understanding, QAnon is just sort of like an insider that's leaking information, correct?
Yeah, leaking breadcrumbs. Yeah, to lead
so,
people to information. Yeah.
So what kind of negative impact would that have on the president if there was this person that had infiltrated the government or around him? What kind of negative impact would that be for him to, publicly show who that person is?
Yeah, that's a good question. I haven't really even thought about that much because I'm so convinced that the media won't ever directly ask him. But
okay.
And I hope they do. Like that, to me, watching all this go down, I think that is the final. Like that's what it would take for me to completely believe this, because all of this is quite impressive, and I can't imagine somebody would spend almost a year going through all this just for a prank. Like it's possible, but it's doubtful. And then another thing that has recently come up was that they found out that some of the trip codes that Q's been using, which he's used, I can't remember what the exact number is, but it's over like 1,000 different trip codes he's used. These trip codes are numbers that actually, that if you go into Google books, they take you to books. If you punch the number in, it'll take you to a book. And all these books that it's going to are all disclosure books, like extraterrestrial, secret space program, all these things, like specifically. So he's dropping, and this is so premeditated. Like the way this is going out, it seems so premeditated. So I don't know what the negative impact would be. I assume if it happened right now, I don't know how that would go down or how that would react. I'm really not sure. Like I really don't know. It's a weird one.
And if they, if QAnon has infiltrated enough, you got to assume that there's more than one person that's around the president. You know what I'm saying?
It's not that they've infiltrated. It's that they are part of it and they're aiding the president. It's the other way around.
Gotcha.
Like the president's brought, like, if you believe this whole narrative, the president was approached 3 years prior to him running by different people of the military and different branches of the military asking him to run, and then they'd work in unison. Because we said on this before that Trump's one player on a chessboard. Like he's not the king. He's not the one playing chess. He's just one of the pieces, and he does hold like a big role in this, but he couldn't do it without the military or the intelligence community helping him and protecting him, because he'd be dead like JFK by now.
Yeah.
So they're working in unison, and this is their method that they believe, I think, is the best method of getting information out there and teaching people discernment. And because one of the things he keeps saying is like, you have to think for yourself, you have to look for yourself, you have to, all those things, right? He's not telling anyone to solely believe him, but he does say a lot of the times, like, do you believe in coincidences? How many coincidences does it take, kind of thing, before you start to believe?
Okay.
But there's a few things also that work against him too, like things that he said were going to happen that didn't happen.
Okay.
Yeah.
So these people that are around the president were just regular government officials that were somehow brought into this QAnon group, is what you're saying.
I'm saying that these government officials started the QAnon thing, supposedly, if you believe the narrative. If you believe that that's the case, what they're saying, then yeah, that's it. But there's other people that believe it's just like a LARP, like a live action role play, like a person basically just fucking around, or a big prank that someone pulled and it just went too far. Like that's what the media is trying to say. And that's why I wanted to bring this up, because if you Google QAnon right now, you'll notice about like 2 solid pages worth of news articles saying that it's a conspiracy, it's a hoax, it's this. Like they're in full panic mode, because according to Q, there's been about 50 million that are like watching, like following Q actively, and about 350 million that Q has reached out to worldwide. that have seen it or just or looked at the information or something to do with it, and that scares the shit out of the the establishment.
Sure. Now, what's the difference between a group like QAnon and then a group like Anonymous, who's just trying to bring light to these situations? What's the difference between the two?
So Anonymous is like a cyber vigilante group, and Anonymous has actually just recently said they're going to find out who Q is and out them, because Anonymous, I think Anonymous started with the right intentions, but I do think that over time they were found out and they were infiltrated. I don't think they're the same Anonymous they were. I don't think they're the same Anonymous that hacked like the Sony PlayStation server, right. Or that used to do hacks and leak information. I don't think they're that same Anonymous that did those kinds of things. Q is just using that platform because they know that the people that basically reside in 8chan and 4chan are people that, like, they're notorious for basically getting shit done and researching and never stopping. Like, that's why they call them autists. Like, they just, when they get on something, they just go hard. Okay. And they don't know how to stop. And that's what they do, is these guys get these drops from Q, they take them, and then they try connecting dots with them. And you'll see, every so often someone will pull up something that is all these connected dots that tie into what Q's saying with timestamps, and you're just like, holy shit, like I never would have imagined that. Or the person that find out that the trip codes were used as Google Book references. Like, how the fuck does someone even figure that out? But these guys do.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good question. I'm just really, it seems like it's just such a big deal. Like, I'm trying to wrap my head around it all and trying to learn sort of on the fly. Just like what? It's
very difficult to really fully explain what it is if you haven't been following it for a while.
Right.
Right. It definitely is. But I think that's why right now is a good time to kind of talk about it, because with the media painting it, I don't want people to instantly brush it off. I would hope that they would at least go and look for themselves and see why the media is so scared right now. Because then people need to understand, if what they're saying is true, the media is a propaganda arm for the deep state. So, of course, if they're freaking out like this all towards the same thing, and none of them are looking at it from a center of the road point of view, they're all looking at it instantly as like, this is a cult, this is a conspiracy, this is that. They're telling you what to think immediately, without letting you decide what they want. And I will admit, there are things that Q has said that he said things were going to happen and they didn't, and it is frustrating when it says that. And I'm not even 100% convinced that he's real myself either at all, but I do think it's worth observing, at least in watching how it goes. There's no harm in that.
If nothing else, it's bringing awareness that people need to start paying more attention to, maybe underlying meaning. So, like, I've sort of thought for a long while that news agencies are just as corrupt as politicians. I mean, they're all paid off, and the structure of it is all top down. If you got your guy up top who's wanting to push a certain agenda, regardless of what the people working for the company think, he's going to want it the way it's supposed to be, So I don't know. I mean, I can definitely see the media propaganda side of it all. But I'll have to keep up with this more, because I'm just like, I'm trying to learn, like, talking about Hillary Clinton here at 1818. I don't know exactly what he's getting at with that. Do you see that post? 1818.
It's time to learn the truth.
Yeah.
King James is a great family man, incredible ball player, gives back to his community, isn't afraid to speak his mind. He's a world-class athlete and a class act. We need to be more like him. So the person they're putting there before, Robert Byrd, KKK member, from my first day in Senate, I sought out this guidance, and he was very generous. That was Hillary Clinton's, like, Robert Byrd was Hillary Clinton's major influence when she was younger. And he was a KKK member. And that's the thing, a lot of people don't understand, that with the Clintons and the Democrats, and even with the Republicans like Senator McCain or John McCain, there's a lot of things hidden in these people's past that they don't really need to worry about it coming to the surface, because the only one that's going to do it is a private journalist, and they're not going to get the same coverage as a mainstream journalist. And that's one of the skeletons in her closet, is that one of her mentors and closest people in her lives was a former KKK member named Robert Byrd. And she, yeah, well, she's evil bitch. Let's be honest. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. She's fucking insane and psycho. Like,
I think most politicians are inherently trying to push their own agenda, regardless of what they want to sugarcoat it as. So I think Donald Trump's got his own agenda he wants to push. I think Hillary Clinton, if she would have got the office, she would have had her own agenda. I think Bernie would have had his own agenda. I feel like anybody who holds that seat is going to be influenced by the power they hold, and I think oftentimes that's probably going to manifest itself into a bad situation.
Yeah, it's too much power for one person to hold, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But also when it comes to like Hillary, she does have her own agenda, but her agenda, and they do touch on this in Q, is that there was a two-parter to this series. The first 8 years was Barack Obama to weaken the United States. The second and the last portion was Hillary Clinton's grand entrance, where she was going to take the country and basically turn it into war, flood it with immigrants, and she was going to ruin America. Like, she would have, like, that's what they're saying, is that this was a 16-year plan, and she was in the last 8 years of it, and they never thought she was going to lose. And that's why, like, all the things going on with this FISA document.
Jumbled is experiencing technical difficulties. Please hang around. We'll be right back after this.
Sorry about that, Jer. I don't know what happened to my Wi-Fi there. FISA, you were talking about FISA.
Yeah, so I don't know how far did it get before it cut out on you. What was the last thing you heard?
Pretty much from the beginning. Just take it back to where you're talking about when you mentioned 1816, post 1816.
Okay, yeah, so he keeps mentioning FISA, and he mentions the FISA. And for people that don't know, the FISA, that is, it's basically what they use to be able to spy on, it's the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. So it's what they needed to get a fake dossier made by a former MI6 agent. I can't remember his name right now. I've said it before on here. His last name's Steele, but I can't remember his first name.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's Robert Steele or something like that. Okay. Anyways, they got it from him. He's a former MI6 agent. He has connections in Russia. They get this fake dossier. It has to be approved by James Comey to pass through, and other judges who are all also corrupt and part of this like little cabal or deep state, whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
And then they used that to spy on Carter Page, who is Trump's lawyer, and all his associates, which includes Trump during the 2016 election. So and this was done also, like, Barack Obama knew about this happening, and so did James Comey, so did Andrew McCabe, so did Peter Strzok, so did many judges. They all knew the information was complete bullshit, and that's why Q keeps mentioning it, is because that evidence is, they're trying to bring it out right now. Like, Congressman Nunes is desperately trying to get this document declassified for people to see with their own eyes, so they can actually see the levels of corruption that these people will go to get their power. Like, they would have easily have done this plus rigging elections to get Trump not to be elected so that they could carry out this plan. And Q's trying to say to people, you have no idea, like, how close we came. Like, you have no idea what's going on behind the scenes. Like, this is it's bigger than you know. You're only seeing, you're only seeing what they want you to see. And the media has just been absolutely insane in the last 2 years with how they have like 90% negative coverage of Trump, despite the fact that he is doing, like, the country's doing very, very well. Unemployment's the lowest it's ever been. People are happier with their jobs. There's more money flooding in. What is it? The economy's up like 4.1%.
Yeah.
Like, comparative to Barack Obama, like when you put them side by side, he's just like, this is what it looks like when somebody's not trying to handicap the country, when he's genuinely trying to do his job. But these people weren't trying to do their job. They have an alternative motive that they were already picked and screened for before they even come in. And they were always going to get these positions. Like the election is a fucking, it's illusion. Like it's not actually an election. They're going to tell you who gets in.
All right, guys, let's take a second to talk about our sponsor for today's podcast, Audible. Head over to audibletrial.com/jumbled and get your free 30-day trial and a free audiobook. They've got all the books. I've talked about it before. I'll talk about it again. You know what? I don't have a problem saying things over and over again. I've got 2 kids. I do it all the time. The book that we're going to be talking about for the month of August is Failure is an Option by H. John Benjamin. You might know H. John Benjamin mostly from his voice acting stuff. He's been in Bob's Burgers. He's also a star of Archer. And he was also a can of mixed vegetables in 2015's Wet Hot American Summer. Might have caught that on Netflix. He's just wanting to remind you that as much of a success as you might be, there's going to be some failures as well. Some of the ones that he talks about would be work, where he's unable to deliver a sizzling fajita to his family, where a trip to P.F. Chang's fractures his family. So, fans of his character signature wit and voice will really, really enjoy this one. Enjoy all of his failures and appreciate a look into the life of the man behind the favorite shows. So, if that sounds like something that you would be interested in, head over, check it out. Again, this one is Failure is an Option, but I'll tell you what isn't an option, and that's turning down the option to head over to audibletrial.com/jumbled. Because listen, if you don't get that free 30-day trial and a free audiobook, then an angel gets syphilis, and we all know that.
Right, and that's one thing. Another thing too is I've thought about election rigging a lot, and how there's no solid way to know that the results that we're getting are the actual results, because it's all they have their ballots and they put them through a scanner, which who knows what the scanners are doing. Like, the scanners could be changed or corrupted, the software, the firmware, whatever, it is all jacked up.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, nobody actually knows. So living in this digital era, I feel like gives credence to a lot of what you're saying. I feel like a lot easier and probably more justified now to be more conspiratorial than it would be in the past.
Or
skeptical. Skeptical. Yeah. I mean, it's just it's hard to know, because it's not like you and your buddy are sitting down and tallying up the votes. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
and making sure that information gets to the appropriate party. It's...
Yeah, I do. And you don't even know, like, if you go and look into this sometimes, the companies that might provide the voting machines, if you follow it up the line, like, let's say it's the company's name is like Amex, or like, just for example.
Sure.
And you're like, okay, Amex. And then you see the CEO's name. You're like, okay, that guy. And then you find out Amex is actually owned by the Open Source Foundation, which is owned by George Soros. And then you're like, huh, okay. Yeah. Like, and that's one thing you notice that with a lot of these things, is that there's connections through business that you may not even know are there. And even furthermore, like, QAnon has really tried to highlight certain things that have been going on this year that have not gotten coverage, which is the fact that more CEOs have stepped down in the last 2 years than ever before. The sealed indictments are up to 45,000, and they've got them broken down now into which state that they're in, like to where they're each state that has how many indictments, which is
indictments for what?
Sealed indictments for arrest.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Which is unheard of. It's never been this high ever, not even close. Like 45,000 is like way higher than it has ever been ever. They're averaging, I think it was like, I can't remember how many per day it was they're averaging, but it's somebody in the background is doing this investigation, and a lot of people think it's His last name's Huber. I can't remember his first name. God damn it. He's the assistant attorney general to Rod Rosenstein.
Okay.
Yeah, so they believe that he is doing a lot of this stuff off the, like, kind of out of DC, away from the swamp, and he's kind of putting together a lot of these indictments, and there's rumor and speculation that it's all the people that are going down are all tied into, this whole network of corruption across the whole nation.
How do we? I guess my thought process, sure, we find out there's corruption. How do we move forward beyond that?
If they unseal the indictments, they're arrested, and they've also upgraded Guantanamo Bay to be much, much bigger to accommodate many, many more people. Which, why would they do that when what's the purpose of it? Why do you have all these indictments, and why do you have Guantanamo Bay getting almost $1 billion renovation?
Yeah. I don't know the answer to that, but how what I'm saying is, how do you stop corruption in general? Like, sure, we find out who's corrupt now,
transparency is the only way.
Yeah, but how do we obtain transparency without everything just being out in the open? And then if everything's out in the open, then we risk things like letting all our secrets fly, and as far as like maybe weaponry, or like there are a lot of things that shouldn't be out in the open, but if we're wanting to get to a place where we're wanting to have a government that is free of corruption, then it feels like that's the only way, is just to have that full transparency, 100% full.
Yeah, and I mean, like, what do most people go to war for? Like, what is it usually that they're going to war for? Well,
war is a way to generate revenue, right? It's you can manufacture, in wartime. I mean, you look at like most of the time that the U.S. economy has had a giant boost has been, shortly before, during, or after a major war.
Mm-hmm. So, with that being said, I mean, if you take out the corruption, and you're kind of also taking out the need to go to war, this isn't something that's just going on in the United States. Like, people are following this worldwide because the United States is the key to all of it. Like, that's the key to everything kind of going down. And the other countries, I think they know what's going on. Like, there's a reason that if you look at Trump's itinerary for the last 2 years, that he has visited so many different world leaders. Like, and I do believe that they're aware that there is going to be a disclosure to a degree. I don't know if anyone knows to what degree it's going to be, because you have to be careful with this. Yeah. But I think that if there is a disclosure, and to keep secrets from getting out, or to keep war from going on, you have to, first you'd have to release some of this technology that would take away the necessity for people to fight, because most people fight out of necessity as well. Like, they go to war for resources, or this or that, or that's the thing they make it seem like they need to do, because they create shortages across the world. Like, there is enough for everybody, but it's not distributed evenly. And I'm not saying it should be or shouldn't be, but everyone should have access to certain basic things, and we have the technology to be able to do that. Yeah. And also with the money thing, like, they've already put out a proposed bill to put the dollar back on the gold standard.
Yeah, you were talking about that last conspiracy. The aliens. Yeah.
Yeah, so that they want to do that, which would take away, like, the whole, like, they basically need to get rid of that whole Federal Reserve, like, royal banking system, the system where you have all these bankier families that dictate the money, that control the money. Like, that can't like, you're always going to have, like, well, I can't remember who it was, but it was this one guy that studied it said, like, you're always going to have perpetual war as long as the system exists. Like, that's the only way to keep it going, is by perpetual war.
Sure, and power corrupts, wealth corrupts, money corrupts. So, I mean,
if you own all the money, you can buy whoever you want.
Yeah, and you can make them do whatever you want.
Exactly. So it's like these puppets that you see that are in politics, most of them are bought and paid for a long time ago by either the military industrial complex. Like they give tons of money to John McCain, and that's why he's always so like pro to go to war. Like, oh yeah, we need to go to war. We can't take this. There's always something going on behind the scenes. They've been paying these people off for like decades.
Yeah. Do you think that there's a system in place where the people in power are conditioning those who will teach future generations the same methods? Do you feel like that's like, is this being what the agenda that they're wanting to push? Do you feel like this is being taught at in schools, or
No, it's like a cultural thing.
Okay.
Like this plan that they've been executing is multi-generational. Like it dates back quite a long ways.
Sure.
Like I think if you could take it back to the 1700s with the current families that are part of it, but even prior to that, those same bloodlines go all the way back to Sumer and Egypt. Like this is very old. Then bloodlines are very important to them. Like we kind of talked about this before, but there is like a, you could call it Satanism or Luciferianism or whatever you want to call it, but there is a culture that these people do share in that has a certain way that they go about doing things, and it has a way of prepping people to be in future positions of power, like Theresa May and Angela Merkel and Justin Trudeau, like members that have familiar names that if you go back that you end up finding out there's connections to these people that go way back to the same people, like the same influences.
The Clintons have a tie to, I can't remember which early president. I want to say it's like I can't even remember off the top of my head, but like the not Jackson, but like one of the early presidents. There's there are these ties that are sort of strange that you wouldn't in like a typical, like a non-corrupt government, you wouldn't expect to see, like, I don't know. You wouldn't
same bloodline showing up all the time. Yeah,
exactly.
It's like I thought we got rid of this royalty hierarchy thing a long time ago, but it doesn't seem to be the case when you actually start looking into these people's history. Like I know that the Bushes and the royal British family, like Prince Charles, they share a common ancestor, a bloodline ancestor when you go back. I think they even shared lineage with Vlad the Impaler, and it even goes back even further. And it's the same thing with even the Rockefellers, the Bilderbergers, like all these families all share lineage that goes back very, very long, and they're always kind of tied in with the same other families. But it's a little bit off topic of Q, but that is kind of like what they're trying to point out by putting all these posts in, is like, you see in like 1822, he says like, where is it? Fake news collaborating and pushing knowingly false information. Fake news knowingly false narrative pushes. Number 1, POTUS colluded with Russia in 2016 election. Number 2, POTUS is a puppet to Putin. POTUS is irreparably harm relationship with our allies. POTUS will collapse U.S. economy. POTUS will collapse the stock market. POTUS will cause war with North Korea. POTUS will cause war with Iran. POTUS will destroy the world. Like, these are all false. Like, these are all narratives that the mainstream media has been putting out in the last 2 years. And it's, ultimately, it's like Q says, they want you divided. They want you divided by race. They want you divided by religion. They want you divided by culture, by class, by political affiliation, because divided, everybody is weak. If you fall into the ideas of that system, you will step into the line of the box that you're associated with, and you're basically all compartmentalized. The thing they are scared of the absolute most is people unifying, and just basically looking at them and being like, we don't believe you anymore, and we're not going to. There's no reason for us to.
Right. I'm at this point in time, I'm questioning everything. Right. So like, I'm questioning the government. I'm questioning, QAnon. Like, I'm questioning everything. Like, what agenda? Like, what reason does is there an ulterior motive for QAnon? You know, is like it seems like everybody's got their own thing that they're trying to do for the betterment of themselves. So is this just another thing? It's hard, and it's hard to tell nowadays.
Yeah,
I'm sure
that's a good argument. That's a good point to make up too, because people did say like there's Q merchandise being sold on Amazon and eBay. So is this some dude just trying to do all this to make money by selling merch? Maybe. It's a fucking one elaborate way to go about it.
It's very elaborate, yeah.
But I mean, there are people that are going to monetize off this. Is it going to be the guy that's actually behind the keyboard, or girl, or group? We don't know until this goes. Like, my thing is, like, I don't know what to say until this goes on longer. Like, right. I do think that it's going to take a little bit more time of this going on for me to really be a believer, because until I see some arrests, or until I see something substantial, like, this is all cute and great and stuff and like very interesting, but I want to see some goddamn punishment. I want to see some consequences for the actions that these people have apparently done. And from what they're saying is, we're getting closer and closer to it, especially if they declassify that FISA memo that I was mentioning earlier with David Nunes. With Congressman Nunes, if that does come out, and if it's what they're saying it is, they're saying undeniably when people read this, the completely unclassified or declassified and unredacted version of it, there will be zero doubt in what has been going on behind the scenes, and it'll be zero doubt that these people, like, if you didn't already know, are very corrupt and do not give a shit about the Constitution or following rules or anything. They do their own thing.
Yeah. I guess we'll just have to, this will have to be something we follow up on the further it goes. Because there's a lot to it. And I mean, like you said, this dates all the way back to October 28th, 2017. So
yeah,
there's tons of stuff for me to mull through, for everybody to mull through, and for us to just sort of see how this pans out in the end. Because, like you said, it's going to take a little bit more than just, these posts for me to believe.
Yeah. You actually want to go down to 1809 real quick? That's the breakdown of the sealed indictments that I was kind of mentioning before.
Okay, let me get up to it here. I scrolled all the way to the bottom. 16, 17, 18, somewhere around here. Let's see. Go up. 18, you said 1809?
Mm-hmm.
I'm almost there. There we go. Okay. So that's all of the sealed indictments?
Up to July 31st, yes.
Okay.
And you can see they have it broken down, like the dates that they were issued. The far left, the left column is the total, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's... Yeah, so like he says at the bottom, how many are normal? 1,077 in all of 2006 per 2009 report. They're at 45,000.
Wow. That's nuts.
Yeah. 45,468. 5,052 per month average that they've been accumulating to this.
Ooh.
Yeah. And you don't see this is not, there's nothing secret about this. This has been public for the last 2 years that count's been going up. You have not seen the mainstream media cover it once. Not once.
Yeah. You sort of wonder why that is. But, I mean, maybe you don't.
It's true. And then you look at 1808, and someone had put up, so when the WikiLeaks, like that, the DNC emails were released just before the 2016 election, somebody put in all the different members of the media that were named in the DNC emails. These are all people that were either colluding or cooperating or communicating with members of the DNC.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some information here.
Yeah, these are, like I told you, these Anons don't fuck around. They go and they'll dig up this information, and they'll go through each and every one of those 30,000 emails, and they will sift through everything, and they'll look at every detail they can to find any kind of evidence, and they are very critical of each other's presentations. They're very critical, and that's what keeps it very kind of true.
Yeah, I will say. Oh, okay. Never mind. I understand now. Yeah, so it's. I mean, I don't know, dude. I don't know. So much remains to be seen. And I think at this point we'll just have to sort of wait it out and see what comes next for everything related to QAnon.
Mm-hmm.
So I think at this point it'd be a good time. We'll just we'll sort of to be continued, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, man. Well, Jer, thanks for stopping by, man. I really appreciate it, and we'll for sure keep monitoring the situation, and we'll circle back around to it here within the next couple months.
Yeah, looking forward to it, man. Thank you for having me on again.
Of course, happy to have you. And I'll be back here in a second, guys, to wrap everything up. So there we go, guys. Another one in the bank, episode 75. Hope you guys enjoyed this one, man. Sort of just a clusterfuck of information. And probably a piss poor attempt at a person trying to make sense of it. Me, not Jer. Jer seems to have a pretty good grasp on the situation. Admittedly, I'm probably not on the same level. But that's fine. That's why we have him on. He knows, he's looked into this stuff. He's done some research, and at the end of the day, that's sort of what you're looking for in these conspiracy theory episodes. You don't want some assholes who just fucking looked it up on Google and just reciting what Google's telling us. I mean, you gotta have an informed opinion about the stuff, and with a little bit more research, maybe the next time around, I'll have a better informed opinion myself. But we're just gonna wrap it up. Want to thank you guys for dropping back in. Appreciate you guys for coming back and listening, telling your friends about the podcast. Want to remind you guys to head over and check us out on Spotify. We're there recently, as of last week. Obviously, you guys heard. So head over, give us a listen there. If you want to just keep listening where you are, that's cool too. No worries. Make sure to tell your friends about the podcast. If you want to check us out all over social media, we're there. Just search for Jumbled Podcast. And if you want to shoot us an email, jumbledpodcast@gmail.com. If you have any suggestions for topics you want us to cover, just let us know about that as well. And want to give a big shout out to our sponsor, Audible. Again, head over to audibletrial.com/jumbled to get your free 30-day trial and a free audiobook. It's a win-win. And, if you don't take it up, then that's shame on you, because they got all the books, they got a book monopoly going on over there. Obviously, they don't have a monopoly because that's not cool, but they have a lot of books is what I'm saying. So, I've said it before, just go check them out. They got all of the greatest books that you could want to listen to. And if you want to be a patron to the podcast, head over to patreon.com/jumbled and give what you feel comfortable with. But that's going to do it, guys. Appreciate you guys for listening, and we hope that you'll come back next week for another episode of Jumbled, your favorite podcast about QAnon. Ooh, is it about QAnon? I still don't know what's happening.